Welcome to Arkansas Transition Services Pop-Up PD. This series is all about how to be compliant with Indicator 13 and will be covered in 3 quick sessions. This first session will focus on 3 parts of the Indicator 13 checklist. We will look at specific questions from the checklist, starting with questions number 7, 8, and number 1 in that order. What is Indicator 13? In short, it's the compliance indicator that measures different components of a transition plan, including post-secondary goals, if assessments were used to determine those goals, services and activities, a complete course of study, supportive annual goals, and interagency connections, to name a few. This slide shows the exact wording of the indicator. Every state has a target of 100%, and we must report our compliance rate to the Office of Special Education Programs annually. Before we begin, you will need to grab a student's file, preferably one you contributed to the transition plan, so you can check your work. But if you don't have one that you've worked on, you can use a student's file that another teacher completed. Hopefully you already have the Indicator 13 cross-reference tool. You might notice we changed the order of the questions to better fit our paperwork. So the first question we will start with is actually number 7 on the NSTAC Indicator 13 checklist. Are you ready? Here we go. Question number 7 on the Indicator 13 checklist developed by NSTAC many years ago: is there evidence that the student was invited to the IEP team meeting where transition services were discussed? To be compliant with this part of the indicator, you should find on your notice of conference that you have one for this year, addressed to the student, with the student's name and a check mark in front of the statement, "Consider post-secondary transition." That's it. That was easy, right? Let's move on to number 8. Question 8. If appropriate, is there evidence that a representative of any participating agency was invited to the IEP team meeting with the prior consent of the parent or student who has reached the age of majority? To be compliant with this part of the indicator, you should find a consent for permission to invite a third-party agency form with the following indicated on the form. Dates for years the form applies. This can be a span of years as long as it's updated if needed. Name or names of agencies that could be appropriate to invite or that have been invited. A check mark in front of yes from parent indicating it's okay to invite them, or no if a parent does not want them invited, and parent signature and date. The purpose of this form is to have parent permission to invite an agency when it's appropriate and there is a need. Keep in mind that it's okay to have agency names on the list if you don't invite them. Also, if you get initial consent for some agencies, but then want to add more, you will need to get consent for those which will require a new date and signature from parent indicating their approval or disapproval. Finally, parental or 18 or older students' consent is only needed to invite an agency to an IEP meeting and is not needed to invite them to speak to your class. Question number 1. Is there an appropriate, measurable post-secondary goal or goals that covers education or training, employment, and as needed independent living? To be compliant with this part of the indicator, you must be able to answer yes to several questions and for each goal area: employment, career, education, training, and where appropriate, independent living, community participation. The first component to this question is about the appropriateness of a goal. This is based on the results of the transition assessments that were provided to the student and others, and what preferences, interests, and skills were indicated. Make sure those are accessible. The second component is about measurability. We provided a template with a blank for the student name, the word will, which makes it measurable as long as will is followed by a definite action statement, not a need or a hope or a desire or a wish to do an action. We already included the requirement for it to be post-secondary by including those words in the statement template at the beginning, after high school. Just make sure that the action statement you include in the goal is one that will happen after high school and not during high school. Otherwise, it isn't post-secondary and it doesn't make sense. If, as you review each of your goals, can say yes to each goal being appropriate, measurable, and post-secondary, then you can say yes to the first question on the checklist. Please make special note of the steps you should take to effectively cover independent living community participation. You must assess in a variety of areas that should be considered when it comes to independent living and community participation. Remember, it's not just about preparing meals or being able to clean. You should assess for other areas as well, like self-determination or health management, for example. Think about what individuals need to live as independently as possible. If you have provided enough assessments in a variety of areas of independent living community participation to know what deficits your student has and needs to work on before they could live with some independence and within their goals, then you will use that information to write a goal. If you find through providing a variety of assessments that your student has no deficits, then it could be considered not appropriate to write a goal, and you would not have to write a goal. But you would include a statement in the designated box below the goal and activities area that indicates they have no deficits in this area and will live with independence by maintaining their current skills in the different areas you assessed. We told you it was quick and easy. We covered 3 of 8 questions in a brief time. Were you able to answer yes to all the questions? If so, great job! If not, no worries. Most things, except for notices of meetings from the past, you can fix. We commend you on taking time to check your work. Join us for session 2 and 3 to continue checking your work.